Days when the Dukes weren't hazardous. She's only 17, made us curious. It was a carefree time. How about we jump back and rewind? We were living on Winger and a prayer. Just garbage pail kids with mullets and big hair. Let's open up another pack. Gen X wants their future back. Break out the denim jackets and faded band patches. Share memories, Polaroid captured. It's the Gen X logs, the spot podcast.
I'd like to welcome you to the Wherever I May Roam studio. And if your amps are up, then my mic is on. I'm Gen X Joe, and this is Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. For today's episode, we are going to dust off the denim, crank up the volume, and remind the world that the greatest era of rock and roll belonged to Gen X. And I could not think of a better band to represent that era of rock and roll than Dangerous Toys. And you know what's really cool about the band? There's so much, but the coolest thing for me right now, today, 2026, is Dangerous Toys is dropping a new album called Demolition. And you don't need a stick of dynamite to know that something is about to absolutely get leveled when their frontman, my guest, Jason McMaster, is here to talk about it. But before we dive in, I know last week I mentioned we may be having a sponsor, and that's still in the works. I just can't believe I'm being noticed. I mean, somebody out there actually wants to be associated with a middle-aged Gen Xer who steal air guitars in the kitchen and drums to the steering wheel of his car. How cool is that? Now, back to today's guest. Let me just set the scene for you. Late 1980s, Austin, Texas, long hair everywhere. But let's get something straight about these long-haired rockers. Long hair doesn't mean big hair for this band, because Dangerous Toys was not a big hair band. They were actually pure kick-ass rock and roll and in your face. And I don't know what toy box these guys were playing out of as kids, but to name their band Dangerous Toys, it sure wasn't from the Toys R Us clearance bin. I will tell you that. And who can forget their logo? Well, not so much their logo, but I mean the killer clown on all their CDs and albums. Before it was even a cultural thing, these guys were out saying, yeah, a psychotic clown is exactly the vibe we are going for. And that is absolute respect right there. And the songs, man, as a teenager, I would just flip over the names of them with tracks like Teasin' Pleasin' and Sportin' a Woody. And I would just give out that shitty grin every time I heard those songs. You know they knew what they were doing with those songs. They were kind of winking at you through the speakers. And my teenage brain didn't know whether to give them a high five or hide that album from my mom. Probably both. Yeah, definitely both. And Jason McMaster is here. This is a guy who has fronted more popular bands than most guys have concert t-shirts. Just to give you a quick idea of what we're looking at today, we talked about how he became a part of Dangerous Toys, how fast the band rocketed into the stratosphere in the late 80s. But most of all, he is here to talk about the brand new release, Demolition. It is a collection of demos from the 90s that are finally seeing the light of day. And let me tell you, if you ever wanted to hear where those songs lived before the studio got a hold of them, he's about to tell you. Now, fair warning, we only had about 30 minutes together, so we made the absolute most of every single minute. It was fast, it was fun, and it left me wanting more. Who knows? Maybe we'll make that happen down the road. All right, guys, strap in. It's time to get scared. Here's my conversation with the one, the only, Jason McMasters of Dangerous Toys.
Hello.
Check 1, 2. You got me?
I got you. Yeah. So I take it you got me as well.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you. As I told you in the email briefly, huge fan. One of my favorite bands coming out of the 80s and 90s was you guys and Dangerous Toys.
You know, in less than a year that I joined the band, we were in, arenas. When we got into a room to play for Max, the producer, for the very first time, he comes over the talkback mic. He goes, "Play everything you know. Just, I'm going to roll tape and just going to be like a live show just for me. Play everything you got." We played cover songs. We played any original song that we had worked up that wasn't just, parts or sections of jams, things we had lyrics to, things that we had been playing live that were worthy. We played them in one room, and the songs that were brand new, that were still kind of uncooked, were Scared and Tin Boots and parts of Feels Like a Hammer, maybe, and Here Comes Trouble. I don't think it had an intro on it yet. It might have. Little things like that needed a lot of work, and so we played versions of those. But I remember Sportin' a Woody being brand new. I remember, we had solidified Outlaw and Teasin', and basically we got signed without having a demo. So someone heard a live tape. We were, local radio stations. The one here at KLBJ, they had a program called Local Licks Live, and they asked us to play on it because we were kind of hot shit at a club, Midtown Austin, called The Back Room, and there's a documentary film about this club, The Back Room, which kind of changed a lot of our lives and played a big part of it. It was our watering hole. We were kind of the house band there, like literally overnight kind of a thing. And the radio station used to record bands at all the clubs in Austin. It's a music town, and play them live over the radio. And they did that to us, and someone recorded it off the radio, of course, and it came out pretty good. And we were playing all original songs, of course. It was only like 20 minutes of music, right? Mm-hmm. And someone sent it to a management company in Los Angeles, and they heard Tease and Please and stopped the tape and called the number on the tape and like, "Who is this?" Called his interns. "Hey, what's going on?" And that's kind of got the ball rolling. Meanwhile, we played South by Southwest. That would have been March of '88, and a publishing company was there and saw us play. It was only like 15 people in the club that night. Sunday night, it was when South by used to be only like a 3-day weekend. It was all music. Now it's a trade show. Now it's not for the little guy, the artist. It's more about Metallica's new record or Pearl Jam's new video game. Or you get what I'm saying? It's like it's a tech show now. It's not necessarily managers and labels and I'll use the word talent scout going down to see what Austin has to offer. It's worldwide. People coming from Russia and Japan to play 30 minutes at a showcase and hope that they spent their life savings to get there and hope that Boulevard of Broken Dreams is what we call it. And we got lucky. We just got lucky and got hit by a bus full of money. And they made it happen pretty much overnight, and we wrote some okay songs, and the machine pushed it and it did well. But yeah, the material that we had, that's all we had. The songs that didn't make it, they really didn't make it for a reason, and I have those too. But Demolition, these were written between the end of '91 when we got off the Operation Rock and Roll tour, summer '91, between late '91 and the end of '93, because in early '94 we went out to record the Pissed album, which is our third album. And so, in theory, and this is true, the songs that are on Pissed were pulled from the same batch of songwriting sessions that Demolition was.
I was so stoked when I found out there was a new Dangerous Toys album coming out.
Well, good. I'm glad that anyone is excited. We tried to be forthcoming and wear it on our sleeve. I mean, it's in the title. These are demos the songs were written 30 years ago or more. And I mean, I'm 60 now, so they were probably written when I was about 25 years old, 26 years old. The song Demolition, like there's a song Rattle My Cage, that could have been on Pissed. 100% could have been on Pissed. And there's a couple of things that I feel like could have been on the artist formerly known as, which is the fourth studio record. Yeah, Burning Bridges probably could have been on there. You know, because it's not shoobity mamada baby, 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 crotch grabbing butt rock. You know, it's different. It's real different, which was the idea for the artist formerly known as. Yeah, so Demolition is this great collection of stuff that is really old, and the response from real fans has been real nice.
What prompted now in December 2025 to have this album come out? Was there a call for, and I'll just use the word new material, or what was the reasoning behind it?
Yeah, you got it. Back in '99, you know, we recorded Pissed and the artist formerly known as those studio albums, you know, mid 90s. Both of them were recorded mid 90s, and that was just a hard time for music because the industry just didn't know which way was up. That's when I feel like a lot of line drawing or gatekeeping started, is back then, because it was just like, you know, all the journalism and, you know, entertainment magazines and what have yous, the people with pens and swords were taste making and gatekeeping and putting, oh, let's put Nirvana and Pearl Jam in this box, which Nirvana and Pearl Jam to me are not the same kind of a band.
No, I agree.
They sound totally different. And then you have like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. Those two bands don't sound like each other, and they sound absolutely nothing like Pearl Jam and Nirvana. You see what I'm saying? Let's put all of those kind of bands into this one box, and then let's put everybody else in this hair box that says hair metal, which is dumb.
You took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly where I was going with that. And I'll just use Aerosmith as an example, because they never really were true hair metal bands.
Yeah, Aerosmith is a rock and roll band. I feel like AC/DC and Aerosmith are rock and roll bands. And I'll go one further. I think Twisted Sister, which is always going to be called hair metal, they're a rock and roll band.
Right, no, I agree. And
they are a rock and roll band, yeah. Motorhead is a rock and roll band, and it's just maybe there's some guilt by association because they're loud and nasty and gnarly that people call them heavy metal. Well, Lemmy is an epitome of heavy metal when you look at it like the word punk, which just to me means freedom. The punk attitude lends itself to metal because it's the same attitude. But when you're listening to the music and you're looking at a photograph of the band, you're going to say, oh, these guys are heavy metal, when Motorhead is just blues-based. They're just playing on 10, and they might play fast sometimes. Well, guess what? AC/DC and Twisted Sister are no different and totally fit that. You know, after probably Highway to Hell, AC/DC didn't really play anything fast. I mean, the fastest tune at that point was Beating Around the Bush. You know, boogie dagga dooga dagga dooga dagga dooga dagga, you know, kind of a beating around the bush, man.
Right.
You know, something that had that kind of still swinging, still boogie woogie.
And I wouldn't even put you guys in that category at all.
No, we're four on the floor, real bluesy. If anything, we're like all of the bands I just mentioned, throwing some Van Halen and Rat maybe, but you know, we all love the Sex Pistols and Black Sabbath and Alice Cooper, and none of those bands sound anything like what we're talking about here.
No.
But a massive influence on what we were doing.
Yeah.
somehow, some way, to people that aren't in the inner sanctum here, right? You know, it's like the bands that got a deal because Guns N' Roses blew up real late in the 80s, even though they're a band from like 86, 85, 86, 87.
Mm-hmm.
They blew up in 88, I was just going to say that class of 89, that would be, from Circus of Power, Raging Slab, Junkyard, Rhino Bucket kind of hit in 90, but I still put them in there. Bang Tango, even, Enough's Enough. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And a lot of us had marginal hits. And then a lot of us, a lot of this, what I'm about to say, happened where we all made a second record, and then the journalists started drawing lines, and you're not cool if you're wearing a Bon Jovi shirt listening to Nirvana. And I'm like, why not? Why would someone say that?
And that's kind of where I think the youth of that era, and I throw myself into that category, was kind of like, oh man, I got to switch now to combat boots and flannels and
no. That's like saying, to me, music is kind of religious and romantic to a soul, and it's medicine, and art is that way, and that's just how I feel about it. So this kind of gatekeeping is and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or be crass or anything when I say this, no matter what your beliefs are. But listen, it's like being turned down to attend church or whatever by what you're wearing. Like, let's say you're wearing a concert T-shirt,
right?
And someone turns you away at the door because you're not wearing a button-up shirt and a tie to attend church or whatever, and you're turned away because of the clothes you're wearing. That doesn't sound right to. That's gatekeeping. It might see my point. It's a little bit extreme maybe, but
well, thankfully the church that I go to now, I can say that truly does not happen, because I started attending this church about a year and a half ago, and the second time I frequented it, I sat right behind a gentleman that was wearing an Iron Maiden T-shirt with Eddie on the back of it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to work out well for me.
Yeah, I feel like the free thinking it should be part of who you are.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Let's jump back a little bit to the Demolition album that's out now. Did that spark any conversations about possibly recording brand new material with Dangerous Toys?
Just to hit that on the head real quick, we do have new songs. We're playing 2 or 3 of them in the live set, and we have been for a few years now. Finishing out at 10, 12 song, considered to be all brand new material, it's still cooking, right? The idea has been there for a while now, and we want to hurry up and finish that, but we're not really in a big hurry because we're just not. And I hope that doesn't make people mad. I mean, some people troll to just say, oh, these guys are lazy, and that's fine. They can say that we're lazy. I mean, they may or may not be wrong. By way of, we just put out a record of 30-year-old demos. Just to elaborate, Cleopatra, I started in on it in mid 90s. We had those studio records, Pissed and the artist formerly known as, and Cleopatra ended up licensing those, so they own those records now, and they asked us for a live record, which came out officially in 1999, and I don't think it did very well, but it's been some tracks from that have been culled by Cleopatra's people and put together in various sort of compilation Dangerous Toys, greatest hits kind of releases and things like that, which I don't really condone because the artwork was fucking awful, and and that there was no cohesiveness to the product at all. But if you bought that and you bring it to us, we would love to sign it for you. We're not like assholes about it. But yeah, there's a few things that Cleopatra did that are just odd, and then there's the Pissed and Artist reissues that they've done on vinyl recently are really, really pretty nice. The CD versions have like all these cover songs that I did sort of over on the side, for gas money kind of thing.
Right.
And it's not Dangerous Toys, it's just my voice. And they put them on the CD versions of those releases of Pissed and Artist. And that's not cool. So there's some things that they've done that were really weird that I don't really condone. But as I climb back up the ladder out of the shit box, they've really done a great job with Demolition, and the band is extremely happy with the product that they're pushing right now, and apparently it's doing pretty good. It's moving pretty good. I'll take it, And then those, like I said, the vinyl reissues of Pissed and the Artists are great. I wish they would have done something with the live album that would have been a little bit more proper with the band involved, because man, the liner notes, I can just start with those. They fucked those up good. Anyway, extremely happy with Cleopatra coming back to Demolition and its release. The story goes like this. I don't even know it to be even a year ago, but 8 months ago, 6 months ago, something like that. They were talking to Scott Dalhoover, guitar player, Dangerous Toys, and Scott has a band called Legion of the Dog, and they made a record, and they were in talks with Cleopatra about releasing their record. And I think in deep conversation, the label was telling Scott, well, what about the Toys? What do you guys, I know, I would love to do a new Toys album. Sure, yeah, we'll work on that, but, we're not in a hurry for whatever reason. None of us live close to each other anymore, so it's not like the old days where we could just, hey, let's meet at the jam room at 2 tomorrow, and then you're in there every day writing tunes and not realizing some of them would come out 30 years later. But anyway, demo, those rotten, falling apart, demagnetized cassettes from a box, 30 years later would come. But the point, what do you got laying around? And Scott was like, well, we have a bunch of old demos that were never, and they got really excited about that. And Scott calls me and tells me about the conversation. And I said, well, during COVID, I made myself useful. I took those those cassette tapes, those old demos. I had no master reels, no 1 inch, half inch. I didn't have any reels at all, because these were demos that were recorded for the most part. There were 3 or 4 songs that were actually done in a studio and paid for by the label back then, when we were still with Columbia, because Pissed and Artists are not on Columbia. We asked them to, we wrote, a ton of songs, which you can hear on Demolition, but we wrote 5 times as many as that, and they were all rejected. And that's what we talk about in the liner notes in Demolition, about how we came off the road and started writing. Well, we didn't put out a record till 94. Well, that was not on Columbia. We called the label and say, hey man, you guys just keep shunning everything we write and saying that you don't like it or whatever, you're not there yet, whatever. Can we just leave the label? Can you drop us officially so we're ready to make a record? You're keeping us from our art. That's kind of gatekeeping. So we bailed on good terms. And it's funny because then the first album went gold that year, which is weird. Anyway, so Cleopatra, what do you got laying around? Scott, hey dude, what do you got? I digitized all of these old cassette tapes, and they sound like ass. But let's go through them and try to clean them up a little bit. And that's pretty much what Demolition is. But know for a fact that we could do Demolition 2, Demolition 3, Demolition. We have so
Wow,
much.
nice.
Now, it was a little bit obvious to me and Scott as to what songs were going to end up on this collection of old ass rejected songs. You know, Columbia didn't like them, but it just goes to show, what do they know? Because the fans have been like, holy crap, this song could have been on that. This is my new favorite Toy song. La 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 la. And that's great. We're getting use out of these songs that we forgot about, you know. And there was one thing that I read, and it was just, you know, somebody in mom's basement, right? Saying that, yeah, these are good songs, but it sounds like shit.
Well, of course.
Like this is a great record, but it sounds like shit. And I go, well, it's called Demolition. You know what that word means, and it's a play on words here because these are uncooked songs. You know, by the time, if someone would have liked them at some point and gave us a bag of money to go record those exact songs in 1992-ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pre-Pissed, sort of between Hellacious Acres and Pissed, this would have been the record. This would have been, some of the Pissed songs probably would have ended up on this as well. But look at Demolition as the missing link between Hellacious Acres and Pissed. And when you think like that and you go listen to these songs, it's like, wow, there's a big what if here. But that also means that the songs would have probably gotten a full rewrite. They would have been cooked. They would have been, you know, pre-production rehearsal. Hey, this breakdown should go longer. Hey, this lyric kind of sucks. Hey, why don't you do something different here? La, la, la. We would have really put the time into it instead of like, hey, let's write 4 songs this week and send them to the label and see if they like them and see if we hit a chord with them and see if, nope, it was keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. Well, that went on for a year or more. So here we are, 2026, talking about old Toys material that a lot of people seem to love.
Yeah, there's just something about your voice and the band in general that made me become a fan. You know, we know it's not hair metal, it's rock and roll, but it's like that sleaze rock, gritty, southern. You can just put a whole mixture of adjectives there. And to me, that was my hook with you guys.
I had just come off of, you know, an 8 or 9 year stint with a progressive math metal technical thrash band called Watchtower.
Right.
So for the Toys thing to happen overnight, like we started the conversation with, I was relearning how to sing like basic bluesy rock and roll. But even being in like this uber extreme over the top prog thrash thing, you know, the whole time I loved AC/DC and Twisted Sister and Aerosmith and you know, rock and roll, Elton John and Alice Cooper and The Sweet and Queen and ZZ Top and Foghat and bluesy stuff and I also liked extreme metal and I liked thrash metal and the Bay Area thrash in particular. I love Overkill and Anthrax from the East Coast, and there was just so much underground music to take in that the mainstream still doesn't know exists because a lot of people didn't even get into music until MTV because it was an age thing, right? It makes me think of Stranger Things or something, right? The ilk of the age of those kids is like, you know, they were all going to school together. And can't remember the character's name, but the young girl that has red hair, she's into Kate Bush. It's her song, and that's a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? That was during that supposedly the time period for Stranger Things is the mid to late 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was an MTV world. And I like how Stranger Things doesn't play into MTV at all. It's more about kids growing up but the idea as far as like pop culture is a perfect example of how kids got into music. Oh, let's go ride bikes and skateboard and play Dungeons and Dragons and fuck off and go play video games, which were also brand new. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a lifestyle that played into the whole MTV thing, and even influenced the videos and the treatments for all of the rock videos, from Judas Priest to AC/DC. I mean, they wrote a song called "Blow Up Your Video" and then made a video for the song "Blow Up Your Video." I just feel like all of that stuff is related to how people find out about music. But I was this different kind of a singer that these guys asked to go, hey, can you be our singer in this kind of butt rock band, this kind of hard rock, club rock band that's dirty and bluesy, and we play trendy stuff. We play LA Guns and Guns N' Roses and Faster Pussycat, but we also do classic rock like Led Zeppelin and AC/DC and Black Sabbath and whatever. And I was like, that sounds like a blast. And then we start writing songs, and then boom, overnight, it blew up in our face. And no complaints. I learned a lot, and yeah.
Now, is there anything we didn't cover? And I'm sure there's tons that we didn't cover in this time frame that you'd like to share with any of the listeners?
I've said too much. I talk a lot. But I appreciate you letting me vomit into the microphone with you today. And people, if they are glutton for punishment and they want some more, I'm easy to find. I have a website, jasonmcmaster.net, brokenteeth.com, dangeroustoys.us. Have a new record hopefully coming out later this year with a band called Hot Shot, which is the remnants of Dirty Looks. It has members of Dirty Looks.
Oh, wow.
If you like Dirty Looks, you'll like Hot Shot. There's 2 songs on streaming right now. Hot Shot, the shot has the umlauts over it, and I guess if it didn't, it would be called Hot Shit. That's good. You laugh. Thank you. And then there's so much stuff out there, but there's a whole. You'll just get berated and tormented at jasonmcmaster.net. That should be enough.
And let's not forget your podcast.
The Talk Louder podcast is currently on hiatus, and we have been just for a few weeks now. My co-host, Metal Dave, had back surgery, but they went in through his neck to move a few discs over, removed or something. It's crazy. And they moved his voice box and his trachea. Let's get that shit out of the way so we can work. Well, they sewed him up, and now he can't talk. And it's been over a month.
Oh, my God.
We are on hiatus right now. He'll come back. He's getting better. He's taking some steroids, which are a no-no anyway, but he's angry, and he really wants to. He keeps trying to book guests for for new episodes, and I'm like, dude, you can't even talk, and I can't do it without you. But there's hundreds of episodes that people can go listen to now. TalkLouderPodcast.com, wherever you get your podcast.
All right, Jason. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining me today on the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
Keep on rocking, man.
Thanks. Will do. I got nothing else. No plan B.
All right.
And that is a wrap on this absolutely killer clown episode, if you know what I mean. I don't know about you, but man, I like being scared. And interviewing Jason for the first time had me a little nervous going in. You never know quite how it's going to go. But in the end, man, Jason, you are a super cool dude through and through. I give you a huge thank you for being our guest here on the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. Dude, you are an amazing vocalist, bassist, songwriter, producer, visual artist. I could go on, but most of all, man, you are a metal and rock enthusiast. And listen, if anyone out there is not familiar with all of Jason's work and you're just stuck on Dangerous Toys, go do yourself a favor and go deep. Take a look back to his first band, Progressive Metal Pioneers Watchtower. We got the Texas Rockers, Dangerous Toys, as you know, and the riff-driven bruisers of Broken Teeth, I could name tons of more bands and projects that prove this man has never stopped collaborating and creating at the age of 60. And right now he is still pushing the boundaries of rock and metal. But before you do all of that, go check out Dangerous Toys' new release, Demolition. Man, they have finally cracked open a toy box for the first time in about 30 years. Again, all unreleased material from the band's earliest days of the 90s. It's all classic lineup, vintage recordings, the real deal. The guys in Dangerous Toys handpicked the songs themselves for this new release. And just to swing back around for everything Jason McMaster, head over to jasonmcmaster.net and find him on all social media platforms. And for Dangerous Toys, check out their website at dangeroustoys.us and all the social media platforms. Once again, thank you to Jason McMaster of the Rock Universe for being my guest on the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. I'm Gen X Joe. Rock loud, live proud. Peace out. Props everyone for listening.
The Gen X Marks